fantasy, baseball, statistics, closers today, boys. Closers really going to do it. Even maybe more importantly, salary cap, draft strategy, nuance. Since we last met, got 2 salary caps under my belt. I think we can change the game a little bit. I want to bring some of those observations forward in case you still have some drafts going. First of all, Jordan Dowers, Brandon Thompson told me they're interested in getting into a community league. Here it is. Community league out of the gates. I believe I'll be able to put a link as an invitation in the video. It's just a 12-man. I'm calling it the big opening day Eve S-Cap draft. Jump in there, hit the link. If the link's not working, you can drop me an email in the comments. I'll email you an invite. Or you could email me. I'll put my email in there to check out. I'll send out an invite. Let's get one more league going for opening day Eve. It's going to be Wednesday night at 8 p.m. We have to finish the draft by midnight, so the scoring kicks over for the next day. I figure that's the last possible day to draft. Gives us a little bit of time to fill it in. I got to call out because we renewed a league, and I want to make sure the 2019 crew that everybody got the invite in there. OB Longballers, Bayou Bombers, Blazing Blazers, California Waves, Casey's Cool Team, Dead Money, Gap Slapping Pimps, Ryan's Teams, The Answers Team, the Grand Doll, Opry, and WizKid. I'm calling you out. I want to see you back in that draft this Sunday. You better be there. And truly, truly, big shout out to Maynard, Del Rosario, really everybody, Dr. Fantasy, Phil, Young, Brian, Miguel, Greg, all you boys. Why I do this, I mean, I was in the same boat. I used to listen to every single podcast if it was a baseball podcast. I've heard it all. I listened to all of it. And I like trends and math, so I started getting into it. I like the physics, the sports, whatever it takes to get in there and figure this out. And so at some point, I just decided, like, there's more to this game. And I believe, like, the way Maynard laid it out just was such a dope comment. That's why I do it. I'm glad the people in the community are enjoying it and that you guys are learning stuff and we're moving the game forward. So you guys keep pushing me, so that's why I appreciate all the love. Big shout out to you guys. Let's just, before I even get into closers, we're going to have to talk about Eloy's injury. I mean, do we take a moment of silence for what Eloy did to his fantasy season? Eloy, I watched the video. Let me see how it happened. Because for injuries, honestly, in an episode of Be a Doctor, I want to see the injury. Because I can tell you when I watch the injury, that looks like a 2-week sprain, a 4-week sprain, an ACL. Just by seeing the injury, I'm going to get a pretty good sense. But we already know Eloy tore a pectoral muscle. I mean, this ends football player season, so Eloy's done. He's got a year to come back. He probably will. Will he be the same player? You know, he's young enough, but that's a pretty bad injury in a strange spot. But Eloy, it's spring training, Eloy. Just get through it. You're not some sort of defensive specialist. So let me see how he tore his pec. And you read the description, he just got hung up on the wall. But what do you mean? Did he slam the wall in spring training? Eloy, it's a pop-up. Eloy is looking at it. He finds the wall with his backhand. Everything's going great. He finds the wall. He jumps up his highest, to make a play, because baseball, a lot is effort plays. Stretches up with his left for kind of like a backhand. Everything's fine. Eloy, it's 5 feet over. You're not catching it. You know you're not going to catch it. You see it whiz over your hand. At the last second, he decides, as if this is some sort of dunk contest, that he's going to jam his arm through the rim. So Eloy reaches up, hooks himself onto the wall, and dangles his big frame from his pec and tears his pec. I mean, Eloy, that was the sloppiest, I won't say the dumbest injury I've ever seen, but there was absolutely no reason for that to occur. And just like that, the magic of the Chicago White Sox, the season isn't over, but he was going to be a big piece of why that team was going to be beastly or not. We're going to bump up in Andrew Vaughn, who I have a waiver wire claim in for. Got to look there. And just to reiterate, I mean, I do think Luis Robert will probably end up being a top 5 player next season. That's my feeling. So I do have him on a lot of teams. This is a little nugget. So stats are moving right underneath our eyes. Fangraphs suddenly decided that they want to pull XBA, XWOBA, some more StatCast data into their StatCast line. So that's interesting. In plate discipline, I'm looking for swinging strike. And where is it? Because I know it's at the end of the column. And suddenly there's no swinging strike because Fangraphs wants to add called strike and some sort of combo strike looking. So I don't know what that is worth. I jump over to Baseball Savant. I want to go on the pitch highlighter for an individual player. And I'm scrolling over because I want to check on some players' exit velocity on barrels. And suddenly, it's not working. It's not changing the stat line underneath when I'm able to scroll my mouse over. I'm a little frustrated, but I had to go back to my old ways. And on Baseball Savant, it will allow you to search. It will allow you to put in fields, and this is cumbersome. I mean, this thing has like 45 fields in it, but I've messed with it before, so I kind of know how to get it to work. But this is what I'm looking for, and I want to have a conversation because this conversation simply is not out there. This is the first time I looked at it. But what I really want to know is I want exit velocity on barrels only. Because I can kind of get that in my head when I go to each individual player and then pitch highlighter and then scroll over barrel and read it. But I want to see the ranking. And as this season, Baseball Savant has gotten better with, now we can see swing take runs for batters and they just list it. So I didn't really need to do a lot of custom searches. But what I don't have is average exit velocity on barrels. So I won't tell you, I'll tell you how I get to this so you can maybe tinker with it. On this entire page, it's a mess. First column, player type, switch to batter. All the way over in the third column, quality of contact, switch to barrel. And then very bottom of the middle row is the term sort by colon, and then sort by average exit velocity. So what this did, this pulled out just the barrels. And I'm just going to go through some of these players here and a couple observations. So top of the list, Jake Fraley, Austin Dean. There's some guys that have only had 1 or 2 barrel events. So obviously we're not going to count that. We want to look at the players and the everyday starters. So I'll skip over the ones that don't have really enough. But if I push it up to 10 for qualifying, that might be a little bit too far. Giancarlo Stanton on 9 barrels, 111 average exit velocity, king of the hill. So Giancarlo still remains massive with the power. Let me just give you the conclusion so I don't hide the ball. The guys with exit velocities of about 102, average exit velocity on barrels, 102 to maybe 104, 101, 102, 103, they're a little light. Those are that person is getting barrels, but not really home run barrels. What I'm seeing from the studs is 106, 107, 108. So let's go through Giancarlo, the main man here. Rowdy Tellez, 8 barrels, a 109 average exit velocity. And then look who we have here. 16 barrels for Ronald Acuna Jr., 108.8 average exit velocity on the barrels. So Ronald Acuna is special. That contact is special. The other guys that are in the same class as him, Miguel Sano, 108.6. Pete Alonso, 108.2. So, I mean, Ronald is smaller than those guys and is hitting the ball even harder. Just find that really interesting. We skim down. There he is on 17 barrels. Luis Robert, 108.0. Smoking balls. So I have no question. Aaron Judge, 108.0. Here's a riser that I'm going to mention, especially when it's confirmed on this list. Jared Walsh, 11 barrels, 107.9. Jared Walsh is a Los Angeles Angel. They're talking about this being Pujols' farewell tour, but Walsh should get some starts at first base, maybe work in some DH. If anything happens to Pujols with the foot, Jared Walsh could be a nice sleeper who's not even projected to start right now. Edwin Rios, who doesn't get enough at bats in Los Angeles, 107.9. Gary Sanchez, 107.8. Skipping over a bunch of guys that didn't really meet the number criteria for me. Juan Soto, 22 barrels, 107.4. Interesting. Javi Baez, Shohei Ohtani, Matt Olson, 107.4. I will mention Matt Olson is going for value in auctions, absolutely. People just don't want to touch that. They don't want to trust it. I think we don't know if we want to use him at 1B full time or, but it's interesting because the power is legit. You have Devers and Teoscar Hernandez, 107.3. Nelson Cruz, Mike Trout. So even with Mike Trout, who has not the craziest exit velocity on every single hit, he still has crazy exit velo on those barrels, 106.9. George Springer, 106.7. Just some more names here. Gregory Polanco, Marcell Ozuna, Bryce Harper, Matt Chapman. There he is, 32 barrels, 106.6. Fernando Tatis Jr. So I really cared a lot about the gradient. I don't want to read every person to you. I'll just skim through some names here. Bell, Schwarber, Buxton, Corey Seager, Manny Machado, Luke Voigt, Austin Riley. Let's go down to Ryan Braun, Santander, Adam Duvall. Okay, 106. Bo Bichette, 105.9. Kristen Yelich, 105.9. Even little Victor Robles, only 2 barrels, but he hit him hard, 105.9. Conforto's there. Jose Abreu is there. It starts to slow down. Eugenio Suarez, 105.7. Miguel Cabrera, Soler, 105.5. What was more interesting to me, I care about those high guys because in terms of the bell shaping out, I want elite players. If everybody can hit it at 105, maybe you're not so special. Jose Ramirez, Jesse Winker. What I did is I scrolled down. Let me see who has the light barrel. And I just want to get down. I'll go to the bottom. Suddenly, so if the speed gets too low, the first guy, Whit Merrifield, had 11 barrels, but the exit velo was 100.5. That's why there's no pop. That's why there's not a lot of home runs. And it's not coming from Whit Merrifield. Who else? Eddie Rosario, 101.2. Is that a fade for me now? I was a little high there, but I think he's being priced up as a sleeper. Not a really hard barrel. Who comes up next here? Clint Frazier, 101.8. Mookie Betts, 14 barrels, 102. So that's where Mookie isn't. I don't think he's 35 home runs. Mookie could give you 25 with high average and tons of runs and walks, but maybe not the true power. JD Martinez, 102.3. AJ Pollock has some barrels. Just an interesting list. Just want to talk about those top guys and who really has that super powerful barrel. Let's do the closer landscape. Let's do it. I really did it. Did I pick it apart? Pretty well. I'm happy with it. I'm happy with the fill. I'm not getting closers. I'm not paying up on closers. In the auction, I'm seeing a lot of, it depends on when they're being nominated. If they go early, it's an aggressive auction room. I notice guys who keep big stack want to pay for a lot of closers. My strategy here, a closer can contribute in 3 categories. So obviously put your 5 category, 4 category studs first before you anticipate a closer to win 3 categories. Those categories would be ERA, WHIP, and saves. But I don't want to diminish the value of a setup guy who can contribute and Ks, who can contribute in ERA, WHIP, and Ks, maybe not get the save, but they can stumble into a win If the closer actually goes down, you have the fill-in guy. And those are the kinds of scenarios. So I broke these teams down to who obviously good teams are going to have more chances at save, so we need that. We also need a designated closer in the closer role so that a manager isn't flip-flopping. The teams we have, number one, I just have Milwaukee. Josh Hader, Devin Williams. Hader, Devin Williams. I've heard Hader's going to be using a more traditional closer role. There's high K upside. I like both those guys. Number two, Chicago White Sox, Liam Hendriks. K upside, appears to have the job. New York Mets, Edwin Diaz, K upside. Behind him, Trevor May, K upside. The New York Yankees, tried and true, the flamethrower, Aroldis Chapman, followed up by a Chad Green, maybe Darren O'Day behind him. Aroldis has the job. He's going to get the saves. He's going to get opportunities. I like him there. Washington, Brad Hand. Behind him is a Tanner Rainey, who I see as K upside. So I like both of those. So even if you get close out of the closer battle, maybe you take the secondary guy who might get a chance to save at some point if anything happens to a closer. Los Angeles Angels are using Raisel Iglesias. Behind him, Mike Mayers. Not really interested. Oakland firing up a Trevor Rosenthal. Little bit of K upside. Behind him, I see a Jake Diekman. Sergio Romo's there. And it's weird because closing sometimes is just about moxie and confidence. And Romo goes and gets that chance from time to time, even if the stuff isn't that filthy. Houston's using a Ryan Presley. The Cubs are using Craig Kimbrell. The Dodgers on Kenley Jansen. The Boston Red Sox using Matt Barnes. And Cleveland using a James Karinchak. That group right there, all pretty locked in, pretty much set closer role. If you need saves, go ahead in there and get it. A more interesting pen as it slides down. I kind of bring these down a tier from there. A tier, I know. Atlanta using Will Smith. Will Smith was good in San Francisco. They brought him over to close. K upside. Behind him, a Chris Martin with K upside. And I think either of those guys could close. So I do like Chris Martin as kind of a late flyer closer. That will still contribute in my ratios and a little bit of Ks when he gets some time. Toronto, Kirby Yates is out. Yates was going to be the guy. Jordan Romano with K upside looks like the favorite, but he's popular. People are fighting over him. Going to be expensive. Behind him, a Rafael Dolis, maybe Tyler Chatwood, David Phelps, but I think it's going to be Jordan Romano. In Minnesota, the Twins, a good team who should get wins, should be in position for saves. There's a battle between Taylor Rogers and Alex Colomé. Taylor Rogers, to me, has the more filthy stuff, but Alex Colomé, wherever he goes, seems to keep getting that closer role, and the manager doesn't want to name one. So do you get both? Do you get a piece? I'm not sure. I recently got a piece of Taylor Rogers. The Tampa Bay Rays. What was interesting, Nick Anderson, I believe, is done. He has a tear in the elbow. He's not going to be that effective. He was filthy with K upside, leaving, I believe, the closer role to a Peter Fairbanks in Tampa Bay for the Rays. Behind him, maybe a Diego Castillo. Seattle is using Rafael Montero. Cincinnati using Amir Garrett. Behind him, Sean Doolittle, who did close before, but it looks like his arm is toast, and I'm not sure when it comes back, or Lucas Sims. Again, dropping down another group here, and this is where it's messy, but I have to kind of sort through this because that might be all that's left for me is in Philly, a battle between Hector Neris and Archie Bradley. Hector Neris, probably more traditional getting the role, but occasionally blows saves. So Archie will be a long reliever, a setup guy, a high leverage guy. Jose Alvarado, who's also throwing gas this spring, is in that pen. But I like Neris and Archie because at least I might get some decent ratios. Colorado, not a good place to have a closer because there's blow-ups and because of the park, but they're using a Daniel Bard. Behind him, maybe a Michael Givens, former closer for the Baltimore Orioles. Kansas City Royals using Greg Holland, a name we've known for a long time, not really filthy, but he'll be in there. San Diego Padres, typically a place who loves to have a really solid closer. Drew Pomeranz dealing with some health issues, should have the job, is good when he gets it, but behind him, nipping at his heels, is Emilio Pagan and Mark Malanson. Neither of them really that sparkling in terms of ratios or Ks. Hopefully it's Pomeranz. San Diego's gonna need saves, so one of these guys should emerge. I'm just not very high on the whole team. The Pittsburgh Pirates, who I think are gonna be not good. The closer is Richard Rodriguez, and he is good. But how often will the Pittsburgh Pirates even be in position to get saves? I'm not sure. But it's a good guy to have because he does have the job locked down. St. Louis. St. Louis is going to get wins. They're going to need a good closer. We just don't know who it is. I'd like it to be my boy Alex Reyes, Giovanni Gallegos, both of them with K upside. It should have been Jordan Hicks, but he lost the role. Maybe some health concerns. He doesn't have enough swing and miss, but he has a lot of heat on the fastball, and Andrew Miller's there. Not really sure who it's going to be. I think Alex Reyes remains an injury concern because of the pitch mechanics. Maybe it's Giovanni Gallegos, but either of them should help with good Ks, good quality innings. Miami, who's not going to win a lot of games, has Anthony Bass working, Yimi Garcia behind him. Texas using a Matt Bush. Jose Leclerc was the guy injured. He's out. It should be Matt Bush, but it could be some Ian Kennedy, maybe even a Taylor Hearns. Arizona, who I don't think is going to be that good. Joakim Soria, who I don't like. Followed up by a Stephen Creighton or even Kevin Grinkle. Not sure. If you have to have a closer, maybe a Soria will work for you. I'm not sure. San Francisco Giants using a Jake Mcgee. K upside for Jake Mcgee. If he loses the job, Reyes Maronta is there. I think that's the next guy in line. Tyler Rogers, Matt Whistler, also in the pen. Baltimore, who I think is just going to be so poor this season. Cesar Valdez closing. Possibly a Tanner Scott as my follow-up guy. There's three other guys. Baltimore, they haven't named the closer. Travis Linkins Jr., Tate Sulser, and then Detroit using a Gregory Soto, maybe Brian Garcia. There, in years past, it was easy. I was able to get, who did I have? Like a Will Smith, some guys, some 3, 4, 5 expense guys. Just knowing who's left, who I can stumble into, it really depends on the room, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But there it is. Those are the closers. What I really want to get into here is how these salary cap drafts went. What I saw, some nuance, and potentially some breakthroughs that Maynard points out. I'm trying to change the paradigm, and I'm wondering if we're thinking about salary cap drafts all wrong. And I'm going to point out some of these things, some of this food for thought to get you guys going. Let me talk about my salary cap draft one, my ladder. First draft of the year, I'm going out to get my guys. It's pretty much that simple. I like to name my players. I like to go in and carve my team out. It gives me a chance to see what prices are going to be, to see how things are going to go. I want to bring back some real numbers to you guys. So I focused on, I'm going to put Tatis at short, Bellinger at 1. I wanted Gleyber Torres at 2nd, and I thought I could get Burns in Maeda. That was the rough structure. Of course, I'd like a little Yordan Alvarez. I'd like a little Vlad Guerrero. But there's not going to be a lot of money left after I have to fight for those guys, and if I want to lay some sort of ace in. Some basic observations as I'm laying out my ladder is that third base is ugly. I don't want to pay up for Machado, and I don't want Jose Ramirez, and it really leaves me with Vlad. I already have, Kevin Biggio. I'm high on him. I just wish he wasn't going for like $17 or $20. He has third base eligibility, and where I was thinking that Hayes was going to be a sleeper, he's having a torrid spring training. So I really have to be in one of those areas and sort that out. The other thing at shortstop, if I wasn't going to go for Tatis and drop back down, I see Bichette and I see Mondesi. I don't have either of them, and I want to get a piece because I want to be there and feel what's going to happen. And I wonder, the further I've gone into this, are we underestimating Mondesi? Are we sleeping on Mondesi? I know there's been a little bit of injuries with the shoulder, but he's getting older, he's getting stronger. He's going to be turned loose on the bases. He has the elite sprint speed. At 52 steals, I just wonder, am I sleeping on Alberto and what he could offer? But you're really not going to get both those guys. So you kind of have to have that debate pre-draft if those are going to be one of your shortstops. I can only really go through how this went. So going back to where there were 11 guys in there, only one bot, which is really nice. And it started off with your typical, because nomination strategy, getting a feel for the room. What's the room feel like? What's the attitude? What do the noms look like? And this room was wild in a way. They were nomming weird things. So first it starts off, of course, people want to do injured players. The first guy, Glenn's team, wants to nominate Kirby Yates. But it was a fairly smart room. Even the bots weren't touching them. $2. So that was a little bit out of control. If you nominate a guy who's out for the year, even the bots know that. You gotta, if you're gonna do injured players, it's gotta be someone that's coming back. Carrasco, Cannon. I mean, you might have been better off even with Sale, so that didn't really work. I'm nominating second DJ LeMahieu. There's no way I'm gonna have LeMahieu at $26, $27. I think someone's starting their team with there. I just think it's a bad pick, so I wanted to see how much he went for. He went for $23. Immediately, guys are getting cute. Zach Gallen gets nominated. Aaron Savale gets nominated. So this is probably the worst feeling, the worst scenario to be in. You think you're going to get some closers. You think you're going to get some value late, but now your guy's being nominated early. So someone who you wanted or who was a target is now going overpriced. And then you have to wonder, are you really going in for that? And then you don't because it's early and I haven't even had my battles yet. I haven't gotten into the players. So I'm kind of saving my money because I don't want to use it on another guy and then not be able to execute after that. Fifth nomination, Fernando Tatis Jr. I just want to tell you how it happened to me. We're going up. We get up to 59, 60. The player, I thought I was up against somebody who's been watching the vlogs. He chunk bids me from 60 to 65, tried to freeze me up. Well, unfortunately, I'm getting my players today. So I go to 61. Double chunk bids me. I've never had more respect for somebody in a salary cap draft than seeing a man willing to double chunk up to 70, thinking he's going to freeze me up again. Of course, it didn't. I go to 71. Fernando Tatis Jr. is $71. So that's where you have to be prepared. Well, I felt prepared for that. I'm okay with it. I'll go 10. I thought he'd be worth 60. Went over $11. I'll make an adjustment. I probably have to downgrade a pitcher. I'm comfortable there because I can make changes. What a takeaway I realized is that in the beginning of the draft, everybody has what I might call FU money. We all have money. We can all run each other up. I think that this guy got a little bit, I think he got tired. I think he thought double chunk. It was crazy to be up that high. There's a lot of other players he can shift down to. He can go have Mondesi, other things. Just stop going up to these inordinate levels. But for me, I came in with a different principle. I'm getting my player. I don't know when I was getting off. The whole test is to see when he's going to get off of him because I was just going to keep going up. I wasn't leaving this draft without Tatis Jr., and that's where it took me. So that was kind of a big pick for me. Generally, I won't go through the way the whole draft shook out, but players were really it was just out of order. So after Tatis Jr., here it is. The 10th nomination, somebody nommed Sixto Sanchez. That's how ridiculous this is. So I'm like, oh my God. Well, Sixto is part of my build. Yeah, I would like to get him for 5 or for 8. But I've got to get in on Sixto because I don't think there's a lot of other substitute pitchers. I would have gotten off Sixto if he crossed over to the teens to 15, 16, 17 that early because I could always switch to someone else and I'm not amazingly high. Like, I don't know yet if he's a number one starter, but I get Sixto for 11. Pick 20. Somebody nominates a Julio Urias. Again, I'm like, well, here we go again. Urias for $12. I'll take it. Cody Bellinger. I get into another battle. Cody Bellinger in the comments, $27 all day. But this was a pretty good room, pretty aggressive. Bellinger, they took me up to 38. I just wasn't getting off. That was my player, 38. I think his true value is probably 40, so I'm fine with it. I didn't get a discount. But now I've really spent more than anticipated. My slush fund is dwindling, but I'll just make the adjustments. Luis Robert, obviously 35. I like that at least on Robert, you're going to get pushed up to about 35, but it won't go crazy. It won't go to 40. Hopefully, I'd love to get him cheaper than that. Here was another battle again on a My Guy team. Gleyber Torres, projected for $20 in the auction. Real life price, 35. So, yes, we're clicking through at 30. Okay, 31, 32. I just wanted Gleyber on the team, so I had to spend 35. Real value. So at that point, I'm so far over. I know that Vlad is gone. Everything cost me more than I wanted. And I put a Kevin Biggio for $16 at third base. But I'm okay with that because now at least I filled out my infield. I had 2 outfielders. Do I just have one at that point? I have 1 outfielder in Luis Robert. My money is dwindled. What was I down to? I think it was something like $74. So one of the things in the draft, and I've been in probably 80 salary cap drafts, but still beginning of the season gets that heart pumping a little bit, gets the adrenaline going, winning picks, seeing guys fly off the board, having to make decisions on the fly. So I just got to tell you to be patient, be able to settle yourself down. And one thing, don't go on tilt. Do not tilt on me, boys. I got tilted a couple times, and I just got to breathe, stick through it. The reasons you will tilt, you can't have every player. At this point, I love a lot of players. I want more guys. I want more talent. I want everyone on my team. So when I don't get a guy or I see value slip by, it's frustrating and it's easy to tilt if a mistake is made or something. Just don't tilt. Just hang in there and have your patience. Some other bad non-picks that I put out there, I put LeMahieu out there. I'm nomming Merrifield. Starling Marte is kind of my test case for Robert. I want someone to kind of be satisfied, like take Marte first, and then you think you have speed. I nominate a lot of Castellanos. I nominate some Albies. I think Albies is a little small, a little high priced. So that's where we keep going. Another thing I saw, early nomination of sleepers, Dylan Moore. People just nominating Dylan Moore. The love for Dylan Moore is crazy. He went early in both of the auctions. The risk of getting hung up. So because it's a random room and I don't know the guys to where we're just having a battle and I know that that person loves that player and I can keep pushing them up, I can't read the room as well. I get into a scenario. So nomming for $1 just leaves more room for guys to click. What we were seeing and what I do like to introduce to the draft is, hey, nominate a guy at 75% projected value. The bot's going to take him up anyways. This way, if there's some aggression, if we get into some click, we can push it up and get him to overbid. So I get greedy and I go, ooh, Jose Ramirez. I think he's projected for like 37 or 38. And I nom him for $36. The clock just ticks and ticks down. No, I'm like, oh no, I don't want Jose. At the last second, with like 3 seconds left, one person puts a $1 on Jose Ramirez to take him to 37 to take him off my hands, and that just cooled my jets on overdoing it with the nomination and on the chunk nomination. I'm also seeing guys. There's so much chunk nomination, and it typically works. But if money starts to run out, don't get too cute and try to chunk nominate and misestimate what the draft room is going to do. If it's a smart room, if it's all smart owners, and you put someone on the board for too much, you may just get him for that. I am seeing that mistake made. So be careful with what you're throwing out there. The other reason for patience is that there are players late in the draft that you're going to want. The high end players come off the board first. There's a middle, but in the middle, there's a lot I want no part of. Don't want on my team, and you just kind of have to wade through bad pitchers, hitters, closers, whatever. In the end of the draft, there are some things tucked away that are kind of going for value. What I'm noticing, like Byron Buxton, really not a lot of hype in either draft. I think he went for $5. Rhys Hoskins, Bell, Paxton, Schwarber, they're all kind of falling through. They can be found late in the draft. The guy I'm noticing going for a premium is Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson going up for almost $30. So he's in that category. Tim Anderson, you can't wait on Mondesi and Bichette and get a cheap Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson's going to be right in tucked behind those guys. But what is bothering me, there's some players I can't get. I can't get Ian Anderson. Everyone's high on him. He's getting nominated. He comes up on the board because of where he's projected, and I can't get him on the team. Zach Plesac, going for 18 or 20. I can't get him. And Ohtani the batter. Ohtani the batter is listed as like a $3 player. He's very low. But what I'm seeing is there's always some sort of big stack hanging out, waiting there, and eventually, Ohtani the batter comes up, and I just don't have enough juice to get him. So let me go through the rest of these picks. Be ready for the cliff to fall off. And what I mean by the cliff, we're nominating closers, we're overpaying, we're nominating injured players. You're up against this constant wear down. Money is coming out of the draft one way or another, either to less savvy owners, to bots. The players are getting bought and they're going for roughly value. So the patience, just wait there. When we're doing this upbidding and we're chasing each other, eventually these values tank. They leave the teens and they go to like $8, $5, $4. Everyone kind of has to recoil back because now our mentality is switching between getting the high-end players to, well, I want to live late. I've got to be deeper. The team has 23 spots. You have 6 guys. Maybe it's time for you to cool off and do $5 per player. In this first draft, after Kevin Biggio at the 143rd nomination, Teoscar Hernandez for just $8. I loved it. Trent Grisham for $5, Jesus Luzardo for $6, Lance McCullers for $4, Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher, for $2. It just goes 2s and 1s. I just say who I rounded this team out with: Schwarber, Malle, Miles Straw, Gavin Lux, Domingo Germán, Robbie Ray. Being surgical late in the salary cap draft, how I'm doing it surgically, there's 2 probably numbers I look at. I look at how much money I have left and how many more roster spots I have to fill. If I need 15 more players, I'll multiply it by 2 because I want to be able to steal every $1 player, so I get to pick my guy in late rounds. So I might save $30 and look at what the over is. The other way to do that, let's say you had $40, so you would have 15 $2 players and a $10 spend. And you can feel safe spending the 10. You could spend it in half. You could spend it all on one player. You're pretty safe there, and your live late is safe. The other way to dig in is your max bid. So you would say, I have got 15 players and I have $40 left. So just take 15 off the top because you're going to need those for your roster. And then you're left with $25 max bid. But so this is a good way to think of it. If you're at a $25 max bid, you can have one last player and then be doing $1 players getting sniped late in the draft. Or you could kind of divide that $25 up. You could say I can handle a 10, I can handle an 8 and an 8. You might have to reevaluate. But once you start digging in past your max, past your $2 per, you're subjecting yourself to $1 players. But I'm constantly after each pick assessing where that is. Domingo Germán, Robbie Ray, Austin Riley, Tariq Skubal. I get a closer, guys. Anthony Bass, Alex Reyes, and I throw a Wander Franco for $1 on the bench. Maybe I want to stash this season. I didn't even take a catcher. The catchers got so bad that I don't have one. Maybe I'll play without one. They're that bad. We're just gonna see what I decide to do there. I've got to describe this to you. It's the $1 nomination conundrum late in the draft. You run into this problem in the salary cap draft when you're down to single dollars, $1, $2. You want to nominate something that there's guys you want. If you nominate something that nobody wants, you're going to get the guy. He's going to sleep through to you. But if you nominate your guy, and there's other guys that have stack or have a little more than you, they could snipe your guy. So you're really in this pinch point. So I started nominating guys that were acceptable to me in case they slept through. Most of them got sniped, but that's where I was nominating a closer. Oh, I'll take Keener Falefa. Nope, somebody else took him. I'll take this reliever. Nope. So just being careful. I am seeing a lot of stacks. Just wait. Just wait. Everybody's keeping a little bit of money. Another $1 conundrum is this. If you're really that close, if I'm really calculating surgically at the end, $1, I have 3 $2 players and 3 $1 players left. If I nominate for 1 and somebody comes to 2, now I've got to spend 3, and that will erode a bench spot. So there were some spots, it probably happened with Male, that I just nom for 2 and hope that that keeps the $1 guys off of me because I don't want to have to go up and spend that extra bill. I mean, I know that's small, I know that's technical, but I really want to get my player the whole way through, and that's how I think that it's done. I want to go over to the second auction. That was a little bit more traditional. Let me talk about my ladder first and how I wanted to do it. So I got my guys. And in terms of shares, I can just feel good. Okay, I have Tatis, I have some Glaber, and I can just feel okay letting them go. And the next draft I kind of saw, I was like, well, Seager looks like so much value, and I could go a little cheaper. And that pitching staff on that team is not great. Can I get just the full team? Let me just see how this team laid out. I'll give you the full team in terms of the lineup. Glaber Torres, Cody Bellinger, Glaber Torres, Kevin Biggio, Fernando Tatis Jr., my infield. My outfield, Luis Robert, Teoscar Hernandez, Trent Grisham. Utility is Schwarber and Straw, and the bench is Lux. Somebody nominated Austin Riley late. I had forgotten about him. But I was like, oh man, that's late power. I took him for 2. Wander Franco on the bench. I like this team because of the multi-position. I thought about Tatis' shoulder and that Glaber and Calvin can slide over. I thought about Schwarber won't run. A Straw is kind of cheap value and he plays short. So I'm looking for some of that middle infield redundancy. But the pitching staff, Sixto Sanchez, Julio Urias, Luzardo, that's a little lightweight. McCullers, Otani, Male, Domingo Germán, Robbie Ray, Tariq Skubal. The couple things I mentioned, I paid up to get a Lance McCullers, but I ran out of money from Tristan McKenzie, and I probably prefer Tristan McKenzie over McCullers in that spot. The other thing I'll mention, because the bot, or the drafts, Yahoo's draft format will show you projections and how you're going to end up. I try to keep a fairly light bench of bats. Once I see teams that have 5 bench bats, yeah, you could be projected to hit more home runs than you, have more RBI. But those are from guys on your bench that aren't going to play. So that's not really actual projected numbers. My numbers, I lead in Ks because everybody's projected K per nine is above 9 for me. There's a lot of Ks on the staff. You're going to see and feel all my Ks this season, the other teams. All those starters are going to constantly be getting run. Having really deep bench bats, it's not going to work. You're going to have to drop some of those guys, or you're just going to hold and bury them, or you're going to drive yourself crazy. You don't want 5 bench bats. You want starters. You want RP. You want things that you're going to be able to get in the lineup. So that's just a second point there. So what happens to me as I go to plan for my second one is kind of like filling in the shares, fixing some of the mistakes that I made last time, getting some of the stuff that I want. So I said, okay, I don't want to get into the $71 Tatis Jr. again. Let me go get some Ronald Acuna. And this goes back, I'm having a hard time in any draft not taking one of the big three between Tatis, Acuna, and Soto right off the bat, spending the 60 and then dealing with my team after that. I'm going to entertain in a future draft just leaving those guys alone and trying to be a little deeper because I want to see how these teams play out. But basically, Acuna, Robert, I want some Corey Seager, Brandon Lowe or Torres. I like Brandon Lowe. Probably too much, but I want to see. I think he'd be a nice second base player. And then I'll downshift off of Bellinger to a Pete Alonso. A thought that I have had, and I saw this from another team, is Vlad Guerrero makes a nice 1B. So it's just thinking about what Vlad might look at 1B, depending on how the money goes. Because after hearing Ke'Bryan Hayes tearing it up, and that the Pirates want to lock him up before he splashes onto the scene, I'm up higher in Ke'Bryan Hayes, and I want to play him. And then if Buxton's going so cheap, I just think I shouldn't ignore the steals with a little bit of pop. So I kind of have that laid out. This is how we go. Third nomination, Ronald Acuna. They take me up to $59. Just as anticipated, fine. I have Ronald. 23rd nomination, Brandon Lowe. Now, Brandon Lowe should go for 17, 18, but he's nominated in the 23rd at the 23rd pick. I get taken up to $27. A little bit of an overpay. It doesn't matter because that's my guy, because I don't want to switch over to Glaber because I just paid $35 for Glaber, and I could have to pay more. And I don't really want to downshift to second base because I already have a share of Biggio. I want to work around it. Brandon Lowe for 27, had to overpay. Luis Robert for 33. Here we go again. Corey Seager, $24. Pete Alonso, $23. And then here he comes, the 99th nomination. I did it, guys. I got a starting pitcher. I named the team Cheese Factory. I need to have a little bit more pitching. And I'm trying to execute on the strategies that we work on because that's how I'm going to get feedback in my feedback loop. I'm not going to suddenly abandon him. So I think Corbin Burnes is a beast. I get in some action. Corbin Burnes up for $26. My goodness. So what I noticed between the two auctions, I had to overpay on those guys in the first one everywhere I went. I come over to the second one, I'm being pushed up on these guys. So it's not really consistent, and I'm gonna describe to you some of my real nuance, maybe some game-changing things on how we should really be thinking about the auction. But let me finish moving through this team. Dinelson Lamet, $12. I'll take it because, like I'm saying, I think there's health. My sheet has Dinelson extremely high. Let me go in and let him be the second piece because otherwise I'm going to get the same Urias and the same Sixto Sanchez that are behind him. So I get Dinelson because I don't want to be much lower than that. And then nominated at the 132nd pick, has to fill out my bid. Vlad is already gone and he went for a lot. Ke'Bryan Hayes comes in. Now, Ke'Bryan went for 11, 12, or 13. And I end up in a battle with Sleepy Big Stack, who's sitting on way too much money. Ke'Bryan, he takes me up to $21. I don't care because I'm getting my guys. Yes, I lost an elite pitcher from that. I'm not going to get a shot at Ian Anderson. But the build was about Ke'Bryan Hayes, and I had him. But let me tell you a little bit about this battle. I'm low on money. I'm 40 or 50, still enough to live late, still enough to play $2 games at the end. But I wake up Big Stack, and he is just bidding me down. And I'm using a very monotone bid strategy. I will wait till the clock gets to 5 seconds, and I will bid again. He does some aggression. So he's bidding at, 10, 10, 10. He's just right away snap bidding me, but then he sees that I'm doing this. He starts doing it back to me. So we're just bidding through. Now, he could have worn me down. He had $132. I had like I had $45. I'm calling it a David versus Goliath type battle. David versus Goliath. When Small Stack says, Big Stack, go take your money, go take your FU money, and go push somebody else around. Ke'Bryan Hayes is my player. He goes up to $20. Dude, we are way overspending on Ke'Bryan Hayes together. And what happens is, I believe, there can be a moral line where even with his stack, even though he's going to leave the draft with $25, he's not going to push me off of Ke'Bryan Hayes because it would be personally immoral for him to go any higher. I go to 21, he stops bidding Ke'Bryan Hayes, and he can go throw his weight around later. He's the one that did take that Shohei Ohtani from me. Did what I have to do, but just so you know, if you are in that David versus Goliath situation, go for it. I was calling it final battle. There is nobody else I wanted. I've got to fill out that infield so that it looks smooth. And that's where I did it. I get a Jorge Soler for $4. I can tell you guys to not make mistakes because I make them. Jorge Soler was nominated for 1. I wanted to bid him to 2. It went 2, 3 underneath me. My bid went in for 4, and it sat. And I had basically no money. That wasn't really the player that I wanted. But again, I wouldn't have clicked if I wasn't going to be at least a little okay with it. Jorge Soler for 4, I've got to just deal with it. Deep breath, refusing to tilt, would not let it tilt me out. I end up with a Buxton for 4, Tyler Mahle for 2. And this is where I think the second room really wasn't as researched as the first. Tristan McKenzie. Everyone was worn down. Guys were just getting tired. I nom McKenzie for 1. He sleeps back through to me. Wonderful. Because I was going to have to fight for that and nobody cared. Shohei Ohtani for 2. And now I've done this game. I've made sure that I have $2 for different players. So I'm able to abuse all the $1 picks as they nominate them. German Marquez comes up. $2, he's mine. Archie Bradley for 1. Kyle Schwarber for 2. Andrew Vaughn, somebody else. He's just trying to fill his roster out. He doesn't know if he nominates someone bad, he's going to get him. Puts an Andrew Vaughn up for 2. Nope. 3. I get that. This is what was baffling, and I have to go back to it. Corey Kluber for 2. Corey Kluber was nominated in the other draft in the top 75 picks and went for 25. Corey Kluber for 25 and for 2. And it's making me think, guys don't really have values. You shouldn't personally tie yourself to a player's cost because their cost is dynamically changing in different drafts depending on when they're nominated, depending on if somebody really wants that player, has a passion for them late. How does this round out? I get a Taylor Rogers, Sean Murphy. I'll take a catcher this time. Leody Taveras for $2 on a snipe. Robbie Ray for $2. And then Peter Fairbanks for $1. Closes out that team. Which team is better? I'm not sure. Here it is. It's Pete Alonso, Brandon Lowe, Ke'Bryan Hayes, and Corey Seager. The problems that I see is that I don't have any speed there. The outfield is Acuna, Robert, Soler, Buxton, and Schwarber. Leody Taveras added a nice piece of speed. The pitching staff it got at least an anchor, at least a Corbin Burns, Dinelson Lamet, little risky. Malley, McKenzie, Ohtani, the pitcher, and then some old men, Herman Marquez, Corey Kluber, and Robbie Ray. So the pitching staff starts to look the same at the end, but I changed up a little bit on that major anchor for Corbin Burns. What I realize is you have to start to just develop a will to get pitching. Pitching is going for too much, but I need to have some of it. And it's being overspent on, it's being overpaid, overdrafted. None of the pitching is coming cheap. I don't think there's a way around it. You can't sleep on it. You can't wait. You can't nom it early. You just have to have a will to set money aside for pitching. And I'm just having a hard time getting my $60 stud and putting free aces on a team. Or why do you even do that? And it goes back to just the injury risk that just a shoulder could go, an elbow could go. They only pitch once or twice a week. The bats go every single day. The bats can give me 5 categories. The pitchers can only give me 4. But just working on your ability to get pitching, just your desire to get pitching. So this is a little bit of the paradigm shift to think a little bit differently about what prices mean. You can't look back at a draft and think the price somebody else paid is the price you could have paid. Because what I'm seeing is a Schrodinger's box type effect that looking into the player, paying into the player is having an effect and changing what's inside the box. So you don't know unless you started bidding into that player how much another person wanted them for. So this isn't so much about pricing as it is about resistance and overcoming resistance, pushing through resistance. Think about somebody bidding up against you and wanting a player as you just kind of pushing through their will to want that player, to get them to go want somebody else. That's how I get the player. If I'm not interested enough and I'm held to some sort of price situation, I'll say, oh, I've decided that guy's only worth $24 and I'll go get the next $24 guy. But is that really true? Only if you believe the next player is worth that. And Corey Kluber would be my main example. I could like Corey Kluber. I could say he's worth 10. But in a league where he goes for 25 and then where he goes for 2, price was almost irrelevant. What I'm seeing a little bit more is like you're sailing a boat. You're sailing through winds in different parts of the draft. If you can get a guy for a little bit less of what you anticipated paying for him, that's a bump for you. That's good. If you have to overpay for a guy, it's not that it's changed your whole strategy. It just means you have to slow down a little bit. You can't keep overpay. Your money's going to run out. So a little bit of that moving in and out. I also noticed it's just, the sexiness factor. It's just desire when it comes to the salary cap drafts. We're really not held to being forced to get a player or to fill in a group. And I'm just finding that a little interesting. And what I'm really looking for is the strategy to win all drafts, how to really gain control, how to have a strategy that's going to work when guys are nominating craziness, or a more traditional take it from the top. I want to make sure that my strategy works. And where it goes, I forget this every season because I just fall into line, is I start to realize, I'm always nomming into the sea. I'm always nomming, hey guys, take that. Hey, this will get money off. That will get money off. But I realize that the players that I can't grab, Shohei Ohtani, the batter, Ian Anderson, Josh Bell, I can't seem to get at the right time. These late guys that are mispriced, do I just start nomming into my own hand? Do I spend most of the picks nom and grabbing? Do I go weed through the late rounds and just throw those guys up and get them myself? I mean, the FU money strategy really makes sense. This is about how much FU money you have to overcome resistance. I don't care how high we go. I've got more money. It's not till your stack has dwindled down, till you're starting to think about depth, thinking about living late, that your FU money will have dried up a little bit. So I am going to get another draft in. Get into that league, the big opening day eve S-Cap draft. Get into that thing. Shout out to Maynard. This is why we do it. Holler at your boy.